Okay, today we're walking the paper trail in Burnie, which begins down at the Emu River and then works its way towards the port of Burnie. Under that bridge is where the Emu empties into Bass Strait, with Victoria on the other side of the horizon. You just see the chimney there. We'll get a better view as we get closer, but the old paper mill is on the other side of those buildings over there. And the paper trail is a couple of clicks long, covers the story of what went on across the road now that the paper mill has gone. The paper mill was in Burnie from 1937 until 2010, and it was good for employment, problematic in other ways, and we'll cover that as we walk. This is part of the coastal pathway, so again there'll be push bike riders about. And we're also in the penguin protected area. So let's hit the road. Of Norfolk Island pines along the edge. I assume that's what they are. That's what I've been calling them for the last few videos, so let's hope we're right. Different? Drop a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, comment. Plantings on the left as an attempt to keep the noise levels down. Parts of the old paper mill up there. We get a different view further along. And you can see the wood chip piles over there at the port of Burnie. Apparently the mill went all the way along this area, all the way up to, let's see if you can see Bunnings there in the distance, but we'll walk it up and have a look. The idea is that where they've placed these information points is directly opposite where the activities occurred across the highway in the old mill. Another shot there of the port of Burnie, fairly large establishment. Also got some exercise points along the way. This is the first stop along the way. Bit of a background and a history. The idea is that they were building an industry for Burnie as well as for the country, and it's always a worry when a company starts using the word family. But never mind. There are people that did view it. There are people that do view it that way and did view it that way. It's guaranteed employment. Although once you'd left, you were very rarely allowed to come back. They were somewhat strict in their running of their company. But that's the way it worked in those days, I guess. Exercise point along the way with a view out to the breakwater. We get a better view of that further along. Somewhat threatening clouds off there to the southwest, which is where all the weather's been coming from the last few days. Pleasant little flowers though, brighten the day. I think that's fairly self-explanatory from the title. We'll step in a bit closer and have a look. It was a full service setup. Logs came in one end and paper came out the other. Definitely from its period, you've noticed those conveyor belts and whatnot. We might get a view of them as they are now, a little bit further up the road. Definitely a conveyor belt system with specialty tasks along the line, Henry Ford style, or Josiah Wedgwood style for that matter, if you want to go back further. And the place was known for its R&D. A lot of changes introduced to paper making that came from Burnie. And there's a shot of the chimney opposite and a little bit of the buildings next to it, which we'll get a much better view of further along. The pulp mill became a point of friction in the logging of old growth forests and whatnot for paper, for wood chipping. The wood chipping still goes on, as does the environmental struggle to stop it. Although most of it now is not old growth forest, although some of it still is. Most of it's plantation, and it's all eucalypts, I believe. Some pine occasionally. Nice feel under the pine trees. Might be a little bit of protection when the rain comes. Across the way you can see the great piles of cut timber over there ready to be wood chipped, and there's our chimney again. And off to the east of the chimney is a lot of the buildings, and you can see, thank you, some of the conveyor belts up there. Fairly thick level of cover between here and the beach, which keeps the highway safe from the rising tides that are coming with global warming. On the next way station, just as the rain hits, I'll take a break under a tree, and you can see the light showers there coming down reasonably lightly, but they'll pass fairly quickly, I suspect. There's a better view of the conveyor belts for moving wood chips and whatnot about, as seen in the old photo. Most of the rain's passed, so we'll keep moving. Okay, so they used to do between 300 and 400 reams of paper a day, 500 sheets to a ream, which was fairly impressive for the time, but not so much these days. And as I said, it was father to son to grandson and so on over the 72 years that the place was running. There were female staff there, obviously. We saw that in an earlier photo. And of course they'd have been in the offices. There's a touch of the Puritan, perhaps Presbyterian attitude to work. Labour being more important than actually thinking some days. There's another view of the mill, or what's left of it, has dominated the landscape and put a lot of toxic fumes into the air. A lot of the fellas my age that I worked with in disabilities that had worked at the pulp had some curious ailments, we might say. I'm not going to go into details. They're not the sort of things I saw working with people in their 60s in any other industry. So, correlation does not mean causation. I got it. The exercise station, quite a lot of people walking the track and doing the exercise stations really early in the morning and sort of later in the afternoon. At this hour of the day, most people are off doing their stuff. And you can see that the timber industry is still a big thing. Device over there moving the logs about, getting them ready to be sent off for chipping or off to Japan for chipping. So still a big industry. Now we have wonderful red soil here. You'll get taller walking across paddocks, it's that rich. And so it does make extractive industries like timber and forestry reasonably profitable, but there's always a cost. And the bare the soil, the more carbon's lost from the soil. Mind you, if your soil's 200 metres deep, you can probably live with a bit of a loss. But eventually it will catch up with us. Just coming up to the last exhibition. Now this thing's really impressive. It's a large granite roller. Just to give you some idea, it is really, really smooth and quite attractive. Having made paper the old-fashioned handmade way, and we used a press, vertical press, like a wine press, to get the moisture out. But using the rollers, squeezed as much paper out as possible, got it nice and thin and dry, being rolled up onto big cylinders like that. And that brings us to the end of the paper trail, but we'll walk on a little bit further, maybe take some shots back. I'll show you where Bunnings is. The end of the mill over there. And that white lined building over there, you can see the parallel lines. It's yet another Art Deco building in sunny Burnie. The firm was still on the coastal pathway. 2.5 k's into Burnie. We did that walk a few videos back, quite a few videos back. I'll link it at the end. Would walk over that way to the car park along the path, which wends its way through this fairly broad vegetation band between the highway and the beach. Nice little walk, and then we hit the car park. You get another view of the port of Burnie. You can see the implements up there on the wood chip pile moving the stuff about. Walk up a little bit closer. You can see there's a couple of boat launching ramps there for pleasure craft. There's the sea wall for the port of Burnie, and there's the port and the great piles of wood chips. Cove, got the Burnie Yacht Club picnic spot with the free barbie and a whole brightly coloured public restrooms. Another video walking from the yacht club into the port, so we might link all those up together. I think they're in a playlist at the end of this video.